Hi, I'm State Senator Jamie Eldridge. Welcome to the inaugural 2021 show for my half hour on the Hill. Opportunity for me to talk to constituents and community leaders about different issues. And this is the first time I've been back to ActonTV since the pandemic began. And honored to have my longtime friend and constituent, Maureen Parlon from Littleton.
Hi.
So Maureen, thanks so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me again.
Yeah, and I know we were talking earlier is that we became friends from I think my first run for state representative.
Yeah, long time.
Yep, and gotten to know each other well, become good friends, and I think one of the things that's hitting so many people throughout the state is housing, and it was already difficult, and then it's been made more difficult because of the pandemic.
Yes.
And I appreciate you being willing to come on and talk about your experiences.
Yes.
But I first want I know from our many conversations, I always try to remember what town did you actually grow up in?
Littleton.
Littleton. Okay, so you grew up in Littleton.
Yes.
Yep. And I know you've lived in Shirley, and you've lived in other other towns.
I grew up in Littleton, left when I was 21, lived in Townsend short time, and then moved back to Littleton, and then raised my daughter in Ayr.
Okay.
Lived in Shirley a short time, and then now I'm back in Littleton.
Right. Yep. And I think I've certainly experienced as someone who represents the Neshoba Valley region is that there's a lot of housing challenges there.
Big.
Yep.
In all those towns.
Yeah.
In all
absolutely.
those towns.
And talk a little bit about if you're willing, just what the challenges, sort of through your time, raising your daughter and just living in the Neshoba Valley. How have you seen the housing situation in that area?
It's bad. Affordable housing, and I don't mean affordable housing. I mean low income housing.
Yes.
As a single mom of one child, I don't know how people do it with more than one child. I was a single mother of one child, worked full time, made decent money, and I still struggled. And that's just doing the bare necessities.
Exactly.
It was very difficult. Never could find a decent apartment that, you had all utilities and trying to keep the lights on, the cable on, buy food, do all just the basic bare necessities, and pay, $800 or $900 a month in rent. You just can't do it, and there is no housing. There's none.
There's no new housing really being built.
And there is no new housing being built. The only housing that's being built is these $500,000 and $600,000, $700,000 homes that people who make six figures a year that can afford. Not your average person, not your average family that only make $70,000 a year, or a single parent that works at Market Basket or works at another super Donalds or works wherever that can afford to take care of their one or two children, or maybe they are a double, mother father with two kids. You can't afford it. You just can't afford it, and it's sad, and it's not fair.
You're absolutely right, and I think that's what I always think about watching, movies from the 50s or 60s or 70s where you have someone that works in a factory or some other job, and they're they're buying a house, or they have a nice apartment to live in, and that is just not the reality of today.
I don't know how my parents did it. 3 kids. We had a small cottage my parents converted. My parents insulated it, and we grew up on the lake in Littleton. I don't know how my parents made ends meet. My father was the only one that worked full time.
Yep.
And I never saw him. He worked nights.
Yep.
I used to sit and watch him shave just to have a conversation with him growing up. So I mean, but we did it. They did it. But today, I don't know, like myself, now I'm a single person, and I on disability, and I just barely get by.
Sure.
Like, I'm lucky if I have $60 for the rest of the month.
Yeah.
after paying all my bills.
And that's what's so scary is, a lot of us at the State House and, housing advocates talk about the cliff effect, is that, you're just that close
I'm
to
there.
falling off the cliff
I'm there.
Every month. Yep,
Every month.
absolutely. And, you talk about those cottages on the lake in Littleton, many of them, have been torn down or made into much bigger houses, and that type of, the ranch style, cottage style housing is just not even being built.
It's crazy because I grew up on Spectacle Pond on Cricket Lane, and I went back there and my mother's house is gone. And the house they put there is like a Monopoly board. It's like, you have your little house and then you have the hotel. My mother's house looks like the hotel, and it's like, I was devastated. I left there crying.
Yeah.
I was like,
to see that kind of change.
It was awful. It was absolutely awful.
Yeah.
And that's what's happening in today's society. And now out in the backyard there, which used to be big, huge fields that used to be all farmland, is now, 100 houses.
Yeah. Yeah. All for $600,000, $700,000. Yep.
They're all 55 and over community, and they're like $400,000 houses, and they call those affordable houses. And I'm like, affordable? Are you serious?
Exactly. And I thought it was so important what you said earlier about this difference between affordable and low income, is that affordable tends to be 80% median income, maybe, teachers or other sort of government professionals, but low income housing is really not being built.
It's not. It's not being built. And I think that I know that I recently have heard in Littleton that there are some things that are coming up through the town that are coming, that the town is working on. So I think that if people in the town of Littleton stay tuned to the Board of Selectmen and the Planning Board and stuff like that, I think they're going to see some good things coming. After speaking with a member of the Board of Selectmen, I think that they're going to see some low-income housing coming that'll be really good for the town.
That is great, and I think sometimes municipal officials don't realize, or local developers, that they really can have an impact. But you have to focus on building, to your point, the low-income housing and not just a 40B or affordable housing.
And I think that we have a member on our Board of Selectmen in Littleton, and I think that she realizes that huge. And I did have a very lengthy conversation with her that this is something that this town needs desperately, and she knows that.
Absolutely.
And, to her defense, I said, you guys have got to do something. I will say I live at Pondside. I was in a situation where I was in a 3-bedroom. I had roommates. On a Saturday, my roommates come home and said, we're packing up, we're moving out.
Yep.
I was left with over $2,000 rent.
Yeah.
I don't even get like half that in my Social Security check.
Right.
Luckily, after my area manager to Beacon Properties, to his defense, he went above and beyond and helped me secure an MRVP.
Which is the state housing voucher.
Which is a state housing voucher with help with Littleton Housing Authority, which was huge for me because I was going to be homeless. Because I have nowhere to go. I got nobody. I got nowhere to go. So I will be moving in March. I'll be moving to same just complex, to another building. And then once a 1-bedroom opens, I'll be moving from a 2-bedroom to a 1-bedroom. That's the agreement. And I was perfectly thrilled with that. And I couldn't be happier, and I couldn't have thanked them enough. But there's still not enough low-income housing. There are families in that, just Littleton alone, which is my hometown. That's my stomping grounds. And I know kids there that are still there to this day that started in kindergarten with me, that need housing desperately. And there are people in Pondside, just Pondside alone, that are dying. They're sinking in there, sinking.
Oh, yeah.
because of COVID, lost their jobs. There are people in my building alone they've lost their jobs there because of COVID, and it's heart-wrenching. It really is.
It really is, and yet so many, quite honestly, so many elected officials I would include in many respects myself, we're not hearing from constituents about those experiences. And so first of all, I want to thank you truly for the courage in talking about this, because it does take courage to talk about something that is, a little uncomfortable.
And I tell people all the time, call your state reps, call your state senators. If you don't tell them what you're experiencing and what you're going through, they can't help you.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
If you don't tell them, they don't know. And that's what they're there for. That's their job.
Absolutely. And I do have to say, when suddenly you found yourself, on your own in this 3-bedroom.
Oh, I was scared to death.
and you did get an eviction notice. Is that right? Or a notice?
I did get a notice. Luckily, I was not the primary on the lease. The other tenant was the primary, so I was kind of able to slow the process. And then COVID slowed the process way down.
Right.
And the area manager and I, we had a few words, but that's okay. And we've worked through it. And, him and I were able to work things out and, and stuff like that. And, with some help from your office and Immaculate.
Sure. Yep.
Thank God for Immaculate.
Yes, God bless her.
Kudos.
Seriously.
She is an amazing, amazing person. I would be lost without that girl and the rest of your staff. And a lot of perseverance. And Amy from Littleton COA.
Yes.
I have to give a shout out to Amy at COA. That young lady, I should say that woman, she works tirelessly for the town of Littleton.
Absolutely. It's a great COA. Yep.
She's awesome. And the paperwork is ridiculous.
Yep.
That they have to do for RAFT,
Oh, yeah.
for SMOC, for all these programs to help you, apply for SMOC, apply for RAFT, apply for this, apply for that. And to this day, when the pandemic first started, and I started this whole process when my roommates left, we still have not heard from them.
And that's what I was going to ask. So you applied for the RAFT, other rental assistance.
We did hear from RAFT.
Okay.
And so Beacon is going to take that RAFT payment and apply that.
To make up the rent.
Yep, to make up for rent and stuff like that. So that's all being taken care of. But SMOC, not a word.
Yep.
Not a word. Not an email, not a word, not nothing from that program. And that's wrong. I realize they have all these people.
Sure.
But there's people out there looking for jobs.
Yeah. Well, they're overwhelmed. And of course, I would also say, the legislature, we did pass an eviction moratorium, but it expired. I wish we had extended it. I also wish the governor, had extended it. And that's why they were allowed to send you that eviction notice.
Right. And then there was the federal one.
Yep.
And I'm just going to say this because I know this is on the Hill. Shame on the governor. Shame on the governor.
It would have been very easy for him to extend it for 90 days as we're, hopefully getting out of the pandemic. Yep.
And I just will say that because I can. Shame on the governor.
Yep. Absolutely. And now we're seeing how, the overlapping of, people at least facing eviction, while also we're trying to get everyone vaccinated, especially, the most vulnerable of our communities.
Right. And there's still a lot of people ahead of, I'm in the younger of the age group. I mean, and then you're behind me.
Yep.
So, I mean, but there are people that are out there that, if you work in a nursing home, you work in a hospital. Like if I still was employed at Market Basket, I could get it because I work in the supermarket.
Yeah.
So that would bump me up the list as an essential worker. But I would rather give it up and let somebody who's 70 get it before I would get it.
Exactly.
That's how I feel.
Yep.
As somebody, I would think I would rather if my mom was still alive, I would rather let my mom have it than me. I'd give it up for her.
Yep.
That's just how I am.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
I can wait.
Yeah,
I'm healthy enough.
absolutely.
Wear your mask.
That's right.
But, this eviction process, this whole housing thing is just, for Littleton, I can't speak. I would hope Air would start doing better. Stop allowing Littleton, Air, all these towns, you're building people. Stop allowing these houses to go in. Stop it.
Mm-hmm.
Pingree Hill, stop. Stop all these, I'm not going to call out a particular person in Littleton who's doing this huge development who had all this land to sell.
Mm-hmm.
Put housing in. You have been on Littleton boards for years. We went to high school together. You know who you are. You are putting in this huge housing development. Why not set aside some of that land?
Right, for
and put
truly affordable.
Low, not affordable, low income housing.
Right.
No more affordable housing. Low income housing. I don't want to hear affordable. Low income. You've got all this land to sell. Go ahead, sell it. Sell it to the town. Yeah, you may take a little bit of a loss on it, but you know what? Help out your neighbors. Help out all the kids you grew up with. Help out all these families that you went to a grade school with that need this housing. Make it for Littleton residents first. Give them preference.
Sure.
Take care of your own first. And then after that, when that list is exhausted, then extend it out to non-residents.
Sure.
That would be my suggestion.
And there are examples, in this case, it's sort of Ayer, Shirley, and Devens, and mostly initiated by, town government or mass development of low-income housing being built. So you have Shirley Meadows, which is on the Devens part of Shirley, or the Shirley part of Devens.
Which is run by Chelmsford.
Right. It was developed by Choice, which is a nonprofit developer as part of the Chelmsford Housing Authority. I would give 1,000 thank yous to the executive director there, David Hedison.
Beautiful over there.
He actually builds low-income housing in many of my communities, including Harvard and in Shirley.
It's a beautiful building.
It is.
I haven't been in it, but it's gorgeous outside.
Yeah, filled up almost immediately.
Yep.
The town of Ayer, to its credit, and I wrote about this earlier, is the economic development director, Alan Minoyan.
Oh, I love Alan Minoyan.
Yep.
He's my very, very dear friend.
Yep, taking the old Ayer Fire Station on Washington Street.
Yep.
And it's going to be turned into 6
oh, really?
affordable units.
Oh,
yep.
Alan, way to go, Alan.
Yep. So there are things happening, but action can be taken at the local level. But also, quite honestly, you need more federal and state funding and requirements to build low-income housing.
I mean, and look at Devens.
Yep. Absolutely.
All that empty buildings up there.
Yep.
And there isn't any reason why we can't take care of our veterans, too. We have a ton of veterans, and I know this, I'm kind of going off a little bit here, but you know what? My nephew's a veteran.
Yeah.
He's still serving, but, what about some of our veterans that are homeless or going to be homeless or whatever? All those buildings up there on Devens. All that housing that's empty up there. Yeah.
And there are some units there that are for homeless veterans, but not nearly as enough.
Not enough. And there's a lot of property up there that could be built, that could be low-income housing. That could be developed in mass development. I don't know what they're doing up there. I have no idea. I don't know anything about it, but I think it's something maybe worth for, the senators and the reps and stuff like that to jump on the bandwagon and look into that.
Absolutely. And what my interaction, with mass development is that, to their credit, they are building housing there, but that's government land. They should be building some low-income housing and not just market rate.
And I think a lot of it is market rate.
Most of it is. Yep.
Again,
yep.
$500,000 and $600,000, $700,000 homes.
Exactly. And if the government or a government agency is not going to prioritize that, how do we expect a developer to?
Right, because the developer is going to jump on a $700,000 home. If he can do 100 of those,
yep,
he's making
millions of dollars. Yep,
millions. And
Yep.
that's the problem, and that's the problem. And then they get this, they start a development like, not to pick on Pingree Hill because it's beautiful up there, but they start out this big, and the next minute, they have 100 streets going off of that because then they're like, oh, we can buy this piece, this piece, this piece, that piece, and before you know it, I don't know if you've been up there recently.
I haven't actually.
Go take a ride. You'd be like, oh my gosh, it's crazy.
Yep.
It started out as only being like maybe 10 streets, and it's nuts.
Yep.
I mean, it's really huge up there, but that's the planning board, that's the selectmen, that's allowing that to go on. And they just built a brand new high school. What's going to happen?
Right. Exactly.
What's going to happen in Littleton?
Exactly.
You're going to end up having to build another high school? That's a brand new high school.
Right. Exactly. And so obviously there's the housing piece, but I know, I remember during your time working at the supermarket, talking about the minimum wage, and that, quite honestly, at the end of the day,
what
it
is
didn't
it,
really
$12.75 right now?
I think it's just a little bit above that now, but it's still inadequate, right?
Very inadequate. Very inadequate.
And so obviously we can work to raise the minimum wage, and eventually we'll get to $15 an hour. But quite honestly, I don't even think that will make that much of a difference.
No, not for what, our bills are, I have to say, thank God Littleton, Littleton owns their own electric light company. So, and our rates are great.
Oh yeah, they do a great job too.
Littleton Electric Light is, top notch. I have to say that we're very lucky. And I'm home a lot, and I'm very lucky.
And I think that's part of it is how do we reduce costs for working class families, individuals across the board. So you talked about energy costs, reducing those energy bills.
Yep.
Is that, encouraging more solar, including solar on affordable housing, low income housing, something that we actually is part of the climate change bill that the legislature just passed.
Exactly. And I think a lot of it is I think it's also getting on the cable companies too. Not allowing them to jack our rates. Our cable bills are outrageous.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Verizon, Comcast, and the rest of them. I think if, the towns around could get them to say, no, you want to be in our towns, you're going to bring your rates down. Your rates are outrageous.
Yeah.
I think that would help, the lower income families. If those costs came down, that would help them buy more groceries.
Sure.
Sure. Pay a little more on their rent, stuff like that.
And I know that some cities and towns are looking at the municipal broadband is, should everyone, especially now during the pandemic, should the internet really be a right? Should it be universal and not based on your income? Because that's something that you need, honestly, to function every day.
Oh, absolutely. You can't live without the internet.
Yeah.
Everything functions on, if you don't have the internet, your TV doesn't work.
Yep, exactly. And then one of my favorite issues is healthcare, is that, the very broken private healthcare system, which we sort of has been made glaring in its inequities because of the pandemic. I've refiled the Medicare for All bill is, just sort of having the same healthcare as a right throughout your life and not dependent on where you work or dependent on different government programs.
Right.
And how that could also lower healthcare costs.
Yes, I mean, I am very lucky. I do have both Mass Health and Medicaid, so I am very lucky there, and I don't have to pay for it.
Yeah.
So I have to say that with the type of disability program I am on, I am blessed there, so I'm able to save money there. But
when you worked at and when you worked at the supermarket, you were also on that healthcare because your employer did not provide health insurance, right?
They do provide. Market Basket does provide health insurance, but you have to maintain 32 hours a week.
Ah, yes.
But they won't give you 32 hours a week.
Okay.
So there's the kicker. So if they at 32 hours a week, you're not full time, but So you're kind of in that catch-22.
Right. So then it's Mass Health. Is that
Right.
yeah, what a lot of employees turn to.
Right. I think,
Yep.
I'm guessing that a lot of employees, either that or like a lot of the kids are still on their parents and stuff like that if they're still in college or whatever the situation they're in.
Sure.
But the older, I'm assuming older kids or stuff like that, yeah, I'm assuming that's what they're, you know.
Absolutely.
They are I do notice that they are starting to promote kids a lot quicker, you know,
Okay.
which is nice.
Yeah.
So, but they are opening more stores faster. So,
Right.
you know,
Well, so we've got affordable housing, living wage, energy costs, healthcare,
a lot.
internet. You know, I so appreciate you, you know, coming on the
Anytime.
show because again, it's difficult to talk about something that's very personal that you've, you know, had your struggles, but you know, you always come out on top. And
I don't know how I do, but I do.
Yep. And I think also I want to thank you because there's been so many other people that you have helped or directed to our office or another office.
I always do. I always tell people, you've got to call him.
Yep.
You know, call Immaculate. This is her number. Call her.
Yep.
You know, she will help you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Maureen, thanks so much for coming on the
My
show.
pleasure.
Always
My
great to see you.
pleasure.
Good to see you in person.
Always.
And
Always.
And yeah, thanks very much for tuning in to another episode of Half Hour on the Hill. My guest, Maureen Parlon for Littleton, and hope to make this a more regular series this year, but thanks for tuning in.